Ok, mine herrer og damer. Da har vi dagens medlemsmøte. Jeg kan ønske alle hjertelig velkommen til Kongelig Norsk Seilforening. Og i dag har vi et kjempeflott foredrag, det beste i år, og det skal ikke så mye til, for vi har ikke hatt så mange. Men jeg tror også det kommer til å stå som det beste på slutten av året også. Så vi skal ha topp til topp med Dario og familien, som har seilt mer enn de fleste. Jeg tror vi har noen veldig unge mennesker her som kan lære oss gamle litt om det å komme seg av gårde og gjøre det. I hvert fall inntrykket jeg har nå. Det er ganske stort, så det blir gøy. Og så skal Christian fortelle litt om e-seilingens satsing i år. Vi har en e-serie, så vi lanserer den i dag. Men aller først så har vi en liten trist nyhet, og den skal jeg overlate til Erik Kule og fortelle oss, så han kommer fram nå. Erik?
Jeg ville bare gjerne få lov å informere dere om at en av de eldste i turseilergruppen nå er blitt borte. Jeg tenker på Harry Karstensen i båten Totto. Det var Nikkelsen. Harry var kanskje ikke av de menneskene som stod fremst i køen for å vise seg fram, men var alltid villig til å hjelpe. Så det var egentlig bare det jeg ville fortelle dere om. Og ja.
Det er bra. Takk skal du ha.
Tusen takk, Karsten. Nei, Erik. Det var trist nyhet. Men da går vi videre. Og vi lar Christian presentere e-seiling.
Hei alle sammen. Jeg starter sånn her, jeg. Veldig stolt av den her. Det er en liten jingle som vår kameraekspert Christian har lagd. Altså, vi har gjort veldig mye siste året her på KNS i forhold til KNS TV og e-seiling. Så vi vil bare informere både dere som er her nå og dere som ser på nett litt om hva vi har drevet med siste året og hva satsningen blir fremover. E-seiling er jo rett og slett simulatorseiling på internett. Og som for dere som er her nå, av alle våre kjære seniorer for eksempel, så er jo dette også en plattform hvor man møter andre. Det er en veldig sosial plattform. Og man får prøvet ut seiling som vi er så glad i, også på vinterstid for eksempel, når man ikke får vært ute i sin egen båt. Litt om e-seiling. Vi har testet ut 4 moduler. Den første heter Virtual Regatta, mener jeg. Det er en av de største simulatorene i verden. På den ene modulen som jeg skal forklare litt nærmere om her, så er det 1,3 seilere på en regatta, altså på en enkelt regatta. Store premier. Man vinner for eksempel en klokke til 100 000 kroner når man er først på et merke. Dette er da The Globe, hvor man seiler rundt jorden. Kan vinne en klokke til 100 000 kroner ved å være først på det første merket for eksempel. Og det er store, flotte premier til de som vinner disse regattaene. Den andre modulen som jeg vil bare fortelle litt om heter Virtual Skipper, altså VSK. Dette er litt for viderekommende seilere. De som har seilt simulator i de siste 20 årene, for eksempel, de bruker denne simulatoren veldig mye. Vi har også et norskt lag som er med på dette her, meg selv inkludert, hvor vi seiler da mot seilere i hele verden. Og da snakker vi om OL-seilere, veldig gode seilere, som er med her. Sail Simulator 5 er også en simulator som vi har testet ut. Dette er mer en simulator hvor man sitter i båten, man kan gjøre alt av innstillinger. Man kan stille kick, Cunningham, uthall og balanse. Man har også kjølbåter med vippekjøl hvor man stiller gradene på kjølen og sånne ting, hvor det er mye mer spesifikk inn på båtteknisk. Og Sail Away, som også en sånn type simulator, hvor man rett og slett tar musen og drar I tau. Man gjør nesten det samme som man gjør ombord I en båt. Veldig, veldig morsomt. Her på KNS så har vi satset på Virtual Regatta. Og Virtual Regatta har 2 moduler. En inshore-modul, hvor man seiler inshore. Baneseilas, for eksempel pølsebane. Denne modulen veldig fin for de som ønsker å trene for eksempel på kappseilingsregler og slikt. Virtual Regatta Offshore, som vi også har testet ut og hatt noen turneringer på KNS, det mer en navigeringssimulator, hvor du seiler da over større strekk, for eksempel tilsvarende Skagenseilas eller Vendée Globe, som vi har vært ute og testet. Her har man også real-time weather, hvor man seiler på det været som nå. Og det som var gøy for oss, det var at vi var ute og seilte også da under Vendée Globe, så man seiler Vendée Globe samtidig, med samme type båter og samme vær. Så man får prøvet ut det da. Veldig, veldig moro. Litt om Virtual Regatta Inshore. Og her ser du noen skjermdumper da, fra når man spiller dette spillet. Nederst til venstre så ser man liksom at man kan styre til venstre og høyre, man kan zoome inn og ut, man kan få best VMG, og man kan få litt hjelp da, kan du si, under seiling. Man ser alle de andre som med på den serveren, typ 20 seilere per server. Startlinje, og man har god oversikt, kan du si, over hele banen. Vi har også hatt noen sendinger, vet ikke om dere har sett det, men med kommentering og et ordentlig kult opplegg rundt dette her da. Opplæring på denne modulen, det I spillet, veldig enkelt, det kan man gå bare inn og teste forskjellige sånne school models, for eksempel da denne, hvor man skal lære å dukke for en båt som kommer fra styrbord, eller som på styrbord halser, du på babord halser. Her ser man hvordan man da tester ut dette. Veldig kult, veldig enkelt. Virtual Regatta Offshore, litt om det også. Dette jo typisk da en mer seilas over lengre strekk, for eksempel siden Hobart, siden Auckland, Vendée Globe, som jeg nevnte I sted. Her ser man det mer ovenifra. Man får først ruten, hvor man skal runde en bøye her oppe, for eksempel, og så skal man I mål her nede. Og man har denne viewen når man seiler. Og her ser du at jeg hadde denne kursen, men jeg ønsker en ny kurs, for eksempel som går hit. Veldig enkelt å sette nye kurser. Du kan programmere om du vil slå om 2 timer, 6 timer, 12 timer type, og seiler da mot en haug med båter, opp mot som sagt 1,3 millioner da, som var på den ene regattaen. Her har vi Jenny Langlå, datteren til Christian, som var også med å seile denne offshore-biten. Det var litt gøy, for vi hadde jo flere av de unge som med I KNS som var med å teste dette her. Så det var utrolig gøy å se at de også ville være med på det. Også den andre modellen som jeg snakket om I sted, inshore-modellen, hvor også vi har mange av seilerne fra Ulabrand for eksempel, som med å seile med oss. Vi håper også at dere seniorene vil være med litt da, og dere kan bruke det som et sosialt verktøy. Aktiviteter for 2021. Det tenkt at vi skal kjøre noe som vi testet I fjor også, noe som vi kaller E-series. Vi hadde en vårcup som nå går over til høstcup. Og vi skal kjøre noe som heter tune-up. Tune-up bare hver onsdag hvor vi setter opp en server, og det ikke noe særlig opplegg rundt det. Man må ikke melde seg på, man kan bare gå inn og teste. Og vi har også chat-kanaler som man finner på vår Facebook-side, hvor man kan gå inn og snakke med oss, og vi kan vise litt ting, lære bort hva det ønsker å være. Programmet for dette blir jo nå utover, hvor vi kjører da denne E-serien 2 tirsdager per måned, og så har vi finale da på slutten av høsten, med en livesending her fra KNS, hvor vi inviterer de beste seilerne til å sitte her og seile, hvor vi da kjører live-produksjon med kamera og kommentatorer. Og så sies her at det veldig gode premier. Våre partnere har stilt med gode premier til dette, som de også gjorde I fjor, så vi håper at det også skal skape mer interesse. Påmelding på dette på Manage to Sail, men det må også gå inn på Facebook-siden vår, og der hvor vi ganske mange, hvor man også får mer informasjon rundt påmelding og tider og hva som kommer til å skje. KNS Tune-up kommer til å være onsdag hver uke, som jeg nevnte. Datoene for E-seriene, den kommer også til å ligge på Facebook, men det er 19. oktober, 2. november, 16. november, 30. november og 14. desember som er finalen. Og som sagt, premieutdeling har vi da på E-series etter den finalen, hvor i fjor vi hadde da denne pallen, hvor man får navnet sitt, eller navnet på båten opp da. Larven, det er jo, som alle kjenner, Kristian Fodstad. Vitesse kjenner vel også flere, Håkon, som også er i klubben vår. Og Gro, en av jentene som var med, som tok en andre plass. Det er også andre aktiviteter i Norge nå, som Norges Seilforbund arrangerer NM, som vi kommer også med mer informasjon om senere. Det er også en seilsportliga som styres av de samme som kjører seilsportligaen for J70. Så det var litt om e-seiling, og håper at dere synes dette virket interessant, og at dere kanskje blir med og tester litt. Takk!
Takk for det, Kristian. Da har vi alle fått en god innføring i e-seiling, og da er det på tide å få inn topp til topp, topp til topp, med foredraget. De har også vært ute og seilt siden 1999. Det var nesten da jeg sluttet å seile, det sier litt om hvor gammel jeg er forklaret, men da kom jeg hjem fra 10 år med charter, og da dro de ut, og det er ganske lang tid. 21 år på havet, og da klatret så mange fjelltopper. So Dario, if you connect up here. Ja, som vi alle vet, så er jo det aller vanskeligste det å komme seg av gårde. Og det er jo der jeg er nå i min livsfase. Å finne tiden til å pakke sammen og dra. Det er den største drømmen. Men jeg kan jo ikke tenke meg hvordan det er å ha vært ute 21 år og komme hjem igjen. Det kan jo nesten være enda vanskeligere. Så da skal vi overlate litt mikrofoner her. Hvem vil ha den snakken?
Ja, aha. Ich habe es jetzt.
Ja, vi synger Kjære
Cara
lingua della mamma, tu sono romansla din. Du favela duccia flamma, och kotama senza fin. Inte son scura rinciuna, ma la mamma carezza, e canzon dell'engiadina nell'Uralia ma canta. E canzon dell'engiadina nell'Uralia ma canta.
Så vi är väldigt glad för du är här. Också vi vill tacka mycket för Seilforening att vi kan vara här. Jag heter Sabine. Detta är min familj. Detta är min man Dario.
Jeg heter Noe, og jeg var født i Australia. Hei, jeg er Legra, og jeg er 10 år gammel, og jeg blir født i Singapore. Jeg bor på en båt, og jeg bor i Island, og jeg heter Vital.
Ja. Mia är på toalett. Så jag lærer norsk. Beklager, det går ikke veldig godt. Så kanskje jeg vil snakke... Ja, jeg vil snakke engelsk. Går det bra? Ja, okay. So, many years ago, when we first met, Dario came up with this idea that we have, he wanted to do this expedition. And he told me it will take us 4 years. I said, yeah, 4 years is fine because that's almost nothing in my life. And Well, after 20 years, we arrived in Norway. But it is a very long story, and I will pass the word to Dario that he can explain how it all started.
Okay. Thank you for the invitation. So the song you have here, the first is in our native language, where we come from, in Switzerland. So we speak 4 languages in Switzerland, so Italian, French, Swiss German, and Romansh. And Romansh is a little bit like Sami in Norway, so it's only spoken by 30,000 people in the mountains, but it's also an official language. So when you go to school in Switzerland till 6th grade, everything is in Romansh. Yeah, and it's a very old language. It's a little bit like Portuguese. Yeah. So you see here my family, and what you maybe recognize that there are more children on the picture than you see tonight. So we didn't lost children in the sea, but we lost the 2 older children back to Switzerland last year, because they were entering in the Swiss Olympic training of ski mountaineering. And so they got a free scholarship in Switzerland to study and to do their sports. And they have also now had just an assessment of Swiss Olympic in sailing. So probably they do that in the summer. So they like to do sports. Now, first, when I heard that we come to Oslo, I was thinking how we can serve best. And you heard from Christian that we are living on a sailboat already since 21 years. So since we never have owned a house or a car or a flat, so our home was always the boat, the sailboat. And when I got this lift from Christian today from the airport to here, we just arrived from Lyngseidet, from Lyngen. I was thinking maybe we can share with you a little bit, very short, what we experienced, and hope that maybe Christian or maybe others also do this step once and really go out and sail the world. I think it's really worth to do it. Now, when we started, we were back in Switzerland, and Switzerland has no ocean. And Christian asked me up, how you come to sailing? But we have also lakes. So my father is a ski instructor in the winter and a sailing instructor in the summer. And so we do also some sailing. And my wife and I, we started actually walking through Switzerland. And we walked always to the 26 states, to the highest mountain in each state. And on this trip, we were looking for good examples for the environment. Because with Top to Top, we like to do once as sportsman or sportswoman something for the environment. When you are a sailor or a skier or a diver, you do that in nature. And I think it's time now also sometimes to give something back to nature. And that's what is Top to Top standing for. So we are trying to find positive solutions, positive projects, positive people. They do something for nature. And I think the best to save our planet is you. It's people, they go out in nature, they feel nature, they become part of nature, and then you're a friend of nature. And I think that's so important for young people, that they become friend of nature, that they do outdoor sports like sailing. Now, we were walking here 5 months around Switzerland and collecting good examples for the environment. That's a hut that's fully powered by solar. went then into schools and was just talking about all these positive examples we collected. And after Switzerland, a lot of people told us, yeah, you should go globally. Now we needed also a route where to go. And so we came up with the idea we could do a world record in going always to the highest mountain in each continent without using a motor, so that we just sail there, cycle there, and climb it. And why to this highest mountain? Because in my profession as a mountain guide, I saw the glaciers melting away. That's my office. So I was already touched about that in the 90s. And so I was thinking, when we go always to the highest mountain, we really connect all climates. As you know, as a sailor, the climate is changing with latitude. When you sail in Svalbard, it's colder than down here in Oslo. But the climate is also changing in altitude. When you climb a high mountain, it's much colder on the top than on sea level. And so that was the idea, to do this world record to connect all climates. Now, the problem in Switzerland, you know, there we could walk everything. And I remember from all the walking, we had once holes in the sock. And we came to Lucerne, a town in the middle of Switzerland, and we asked the people where we can buy socks. And they said, in the supermarket. And we went there and they told us it's in the second floor. And there was only an escalator. And so we had the discussion for about half an hour with the staff till we were able to use the fire stairs to go on the second floor to buy the socks. So we did everything walking. But now with the global planet, you have oceans, and swimming over an ocean is, for me, a no-go. So I'm not such a good swimmer. So we needed a sailboat. And luckily, I had a climbing customer of mine who gave me a loan without interest that I could buy an aluminium hull, 50-foot aluminium hull, one mast, and 3 sails. With the deal that I outfit the boat during the expedition, and when the expedition is over, that I sell the boat and give him the money back. Now you have to understand, when we sailed the first time over the Atlantic Ocean, the only electronic device we have had was just the handheld GPS. And we didn't have had an autopilot, I told Christian in the car, for 6 years. And we didn't have the fridge for 7 years. But it was, when I'm looking back, a good thing, because we were always thinking twice what we really need as sailors. And so the boat was an evolution. And I'm still keep to the principle that a sailboat should be as simple as possible. Then you sail, and you don't stay in harbors fixing stuff. Now, when we crossed the Atlantic the first time here, number one, we were not so experienced on the ocean. And you see here a little bit what we do. So we explore these good top examples, and then we go into schools, mainly to children, to inspire them also to act and do outdoor sports, that they become friends with nature. And with the ultimate goal to inspire really people to save the planet. Now, when we sailed over the Atlantic, all the shrouds, the cables holding the mast were collapsing. And the reason why was not a storm, it was just bad material from China. In this, we didn't hear about it, but they had to change in Europe on 2,000 boats, the rigging of this series. And we didn't know, so we were really scared. And the question in the car was also, how did you start? How did you made the step to go, you know? And I think that's maybe the hardest to do, because we have had also very good jobs in Switzerland, you know, and everybody was thinking it's crazy to leave this dream job risk everything. But sometimes I think life is always changing. Sometimes it's really worth to risk something. And here we end up on the ocean, scared what we do next, because the sails are our motor, the mast is very important. And I think really that the most important is improvisation. And improvisation you don't learn in courses. You don't learn it when you read 100 books. You just have to go out there and expose yourself. But there's one rule you have always to remember. You should every time have a huge respect of nature. And you have to prepare. As mountain guides, like Graham is also a mountain guide, we learn that before we go on a trip, we plan and we prepare and we make a safety check. That's really a must to do. But then you learn when you go. And then you can make it safe. So what we did is we had a lot of climbing ropes because we climb also mountains. So with that, we secured the mast. And with a little bit of sail, we managed to sail not around Cape Horn. We sailed then to Barbados. When the first dolphins arrived, we knew that land is coming soon. And we ended up in a lobster restaurant of an Australian. And he was very pleased that we were on time working in his kitchen, cleaning up dishes, because we needed to work in these early years all the time to keep going. And Sabine was a chef after the first week, because we were always in time in the kitchen cooking these lobsters. But we would never came so far without the people on the way. And that's an example from the Galapagos Islands. And there I could give tonight a lot of examples, but there we were about 4 months in the Galapagos visiting the schools on these islands. And when we left, the teachers and parents, they came along and said, it was so wonderful, and you have to come back, and we have a gift for you. It's a long way to Antarctica. And your wife is pregnant. So they filled our boat with vegetables and fruits, because you need vitamins when you're pregnant. And after a while, I had to tell them, now you have to stop, otherwise my boat is sinking. And that's not only in the Galapagos. That I think really there's so many great people everywhere we went. This is Hans. And Hans, we rescued out of a fishing net just when we arrived in the Galapagos Islands. And Hans stayed then in the back of the boat, and we couldn't go on board anymore for 1 week. So we had to climb over the anchor chain to get into the boat. But after that week, Hans became our best friend. And you can imagine, maybe you have a dog at home, how hard it was for us to leave Hans behind when we had to lift the anchor. So we were all crying, and Hans were actually swimming behind the boat for 6 hours till we lost Hans in the dark. Yeah. And that's still so hard also for me, Sabine, and the children, when we leave a place where we have been for a while, to say goodbye. We never learned that. Here, that's the Kona Indians. They live about on 365 islands, and that's just one of many examples that how climate change is really sometimes unfair. So these people, they don't produce the problem, but their problem is that their islands, with sea level rising, they have to leave their islands. And sometimes there are many, many generations on the same island. And I did a talk in Farsund, and there a farmer told me that he is already, I think, 5th generation or something on his farm. And he would go crazy when he would have to leave. And the same is for these people. So there we understood how important education is, because, you know, they have to squeeze in, and then there's not enough fish in the reef, not enough coconut trees on the island to feed all the people, and then they have not enough money for the schools. And I really believe the best investment we can do ever is in kids, because kids represent the future. And they will be the decision makers in some years, and they will shape our planet. So since then, we are trying to support this school with the school material. And maybe when some kids of you are out of school and you have some pencil or some stuff you don't need anymore, so please remember us. So we have really, in our organization, we organize it that we ship to places we know they need it. Then Sabine is a nurse, so she tries also sometimes to get funds to help out with some medication. And then we have projects like here, that's in Tonga, where the problem was that the kona, they had to sell the fish rights to the Taiwanese and Chinese and Japanese fishing fleet because they needed cash to buy fuel to run their desalinators. Because with sea level rising, the groundwater is getting more salty, more brackish. And you need water to survive on an island. And so they actually, there was a bad circle because then the local fishermen had less fish, and they have less money, then had to sell even more fish rights. And here we work together with New Zealand 8 to place solar panels. And every time when the sun is shining, you have electricity to press the seawater through a pump, and then you have drinking water. And then you just build a tank big enough to store the water. So this is, for us, was really rewarding in a way that we were not time pressed. We could stay there till it was implemented and running well. And I think that's also something we really appreciate. When you go to these places, like here in Vanuatu, we heard that there was still cannibalism going on in the very north. And so we sailed to Vanuatu, and the first lady, this one, I was trying to understand how they do it in this warm climate with the food, without electricity. Because we didn't have the fridge either. And she was saying, we are a little bit backward, we have no electricity. And I said, but what is your fridge? How you do it with the food? That's very easy. And he showed me the fridge. It was a clay pot, so double-wanded, where she could pour water in it, and that evaporates. And so like that, the food stayed cool without electricity. And I said, that's top technology. And then you break then there's a relationship here, and they like to know how we do it with solar and the boat and so on. So that's very important. When you sailed further north, I was then questioning once a lady why they eat each other. And the lady's answer was, are you driving cars in your country? And I said, yes. Why you don't walk from A to B? And I said, we don't have time. But that's cruel. That's so insane. That's stupid. And I said, but why? I ask you why you eat each other. When I was a young girl, I had the opportunity to go to the main city, and I heard in the radio how many people die on your road. So for this lady, it was insane, the amount of people we sacrifice on our roads for our mobility. And finally, she started then explaining me why they eat each other. And she was saying, look, now it may disappear because we have had a supply boat 2 years ago coming with the rice. But sometimes in the past, and that was over centuries, we had the problem that we have an overpopulation on the island. And so then we do this game. And when you lose the game, you have for 3 moon cycles the best life. So you're the king on the island, you have the best food and all privileges. And then they put some kind of a plant in your food, and you sleep in and you die. So not suffering, but then you get cooked. So for us, it's very strange, you know. It's very strange. But when you think about when you would have been born on that island, and that goes over centuries, you probably not question it. Like when you drive home with your car, you don't start the engine, you don't think, now I'm a killer, you know. So I think we became really more tolerant to other ideas. I'm not pro-cannibalism, but I think we became really, through these travels, more tolerant to other ideas.
Which country was that?
Vanuatu in the north, but yeah. That's between Australia and Fiji in the South Pacific, yeah. So we are also very pleased that we have always people joining our expedition. So far, we had people from 59 different nations. And what was really interesting, we have had Muslims and Buddhists. The oldest was 84 years old. And then we have babies on 20 square meters, and we never had war. So that's probably a testimony that peace should be possible on this planet, yeah. And thanks to these volunteers, we can reach really a lot of young people. So far, we did workshops with 150,000 students in more than 100 countries where we sailed to, from university down to kindergarten. And this is Anna-Marie, she's 78 years old, still full in drive here, doing a recycling workshop in French Polynesia. And the boat became over the years also a lab where we show students how renewable technologies like solar and wind power works. But again, for us, it's really key, and that's our core, that we inspire them for sports like sailing. Because I think that's the best medicine to save the planet. When kids really, it's not only healthy for the kids, you know, when you always are behind the PlayStation, I think that might be a little bit healthy, but it's much healthier to go real sailing and feel the wind. It does not cost anything for the schools, so we live from donations, and the only thing the kids have to do is they have to come out with us and do a service to the environment. That's like cleanups. You know that there's, as sailors, you know, there's quite a lot to clean on the ocean, on the beaches. Now let's go back to the expedition. So when we were in Easter Island, there we were twice, we saw the storm clouds coming, and we were thinking, it will work out. So we went to the school, came back on the boat, and this freak wave approached. And you see the reef was very close, and so we nearly ended up on this reef. So you have to anchor here on 25 meters, and the anchor was stuck. So what happened is that the chain, and that's 12 millimeter steel, just snapped. And I think that's probably quite a good picture to explain that nature is always stronger than we are. And I think the only way to survive on an expedition like this is to respect nature. It's maybe also a good picture for all of us when you like to survive on this planet. Now, when we come to an anchorage like here in Patagonia, that's a little bit similar like the northern Norway. We take our bicycles out, so we sleep on our bicycles. That's where Sabine and I sleep. And you see the wooden work we did over the years. And then we cycle and climb the next mountain or go into schools. Now, here in South America and Ecuador, the problem was also that the glaciers are retreating fast, and this comuna was on 4,000 meters altitude. And the glacier was gone, so they have had only little water left, and that was very contaminated. And here I like to explain you how easy it is sometimes to help. So with a plastic bottle you find in Africa, everywhere, you can actually purify the water. So you just have to shake it that there's more oxygen in it, and then you put it into the sun, and the PET plastic, that's actually 17 different layers, works like a lens and kills all microbes and bacteria. And we use that also on the boat when we have long passages. So the longest passage we had without seeing land was 58 days. And you know, water is sometimes important, huh? So that's also for us quite a good technology. And what it's really cool on this is that these people, so 40% of the kids didn't get 20 years old in this comuna because of diarrhea. And they use the technology, they are not sick anymore, you know, and then they do it, you know. Now let's go to Antarctica. So the highest mountain in Antarctica is here, Mount Vinson. And we tried to get into this Bellinghausen Bay because it's not only the short distance, it's still far, but it's also wind-wise when you use kites to get back from the mountain back to the boat. It's quite a good position to have the boat. So on the way, we helped out with getting ice cores for researchers. And then you see here on the satellite picture, this Bellinghausen Bay. So up here, that's the open ocean. And from there to the coastline here, it's about 450 kilometers. And in the olden days, this was frozen. It was an ice shelf where you could easily travel by skis. Now, that was a friend and I were on a trial. We had the problem with all these icebergs and broken ice and pack ice that you need also a kayak. And you travel really, really slow. And the problem you face then that you have still a long way to the mountain and back. When you're back, you risk that your boat is frozen in. So that's the only mountain we couldn't go so far or complete. Yeah, that's still open, but it's our favorite mountain. So now the idea is that we'd like to go there and freeze in and overwinter, that in spring that we have time to do it and come back. Now you see that that's the trial, so it's just endless and helpless. When we sailed to the first time to Antarctica, we had also a problem where we hit a floating container. And a lot of sailors don't know that actually 10,000 containers go overboard in storms per year, and some are floating. And that's why I'm very happy to have an aluminum boat. What happened with us is, luckily, the container hit only the rudder, so we couldn't steer anymore. And we were somewhere between Easter Island and Antarctica. So you can launch your e-perp, nobody is coming. You're just too far off. And Sabine was pregnant, and we were the two of us. We didn't have had the autopilot or so, no steering. So we managed to drag lines on the side of the boat and trim the sails that we had the heading towards Patagonia. And we measured, it was still about 3 weeks away. You know, we were really far out. And then when we saw that we could keep course, we were kind of relaxed, but then in these big waves you have down there, the vibration of the rudder caused so much stress to the hull that all the kitchen cupboards, the bed starting to collapse. And you have been in storms as well, and you know how nasty it is, this sounds, you know, but when it's really start to crack, you know, then it's not fun anymore. So we were always prepared to go into the life raft. And after 2 weeks of really not much sleep and not changing clothes, we got cracks in the aluminum hull on deck. And there it was becoming dramatic, you know, then you're really in survival mode. And we poured silicone in our socks and tried from inside to avoid that too much water comes into the boat. And you can imagine how happy we have been when we saw land again. We were probably the happiest people ever. And we landed in Patagonia and Valdivia. We were so exhausted. We were just crying, totally exhausted. And a sailor there invited us to the restaurant to have food. And I slept in on the table. I was just knocked out. But all the people back in Switzerland, our friends and family, said, now you have to stop this expedition. Your wife is pregnant, you have a broken boat, just forget it. But we couldn't stop because Sabine and I, we promised each other that we try at least 20 times. And that's something you should also do. Because sometimes it's really worth to keep going. And I was working as a mountain guide and Sabine as a nurse still, she was pregnant, but we have had no idea how we can fix this boat. And Skype, calling over the internet, was just new. And we were calling to companies in the US, in Europe, and ask if they join in to rebuild the boat to the best boat for the environment. And so we got local fishermen, they were welding the deck together again. That was amazing. And then finally, we got a lot of renewable technology, solar panels from universities. And now it really became a lab. And that was really interesting for us to collect data to improve these technologies. That was the way out. And you see all the solar we have also on deck. And you know, that's really also life quality when you can produce not only your food when you fish or you have a small garden on deck, that's also possible, but when you produce your energy. It's not coming from somewhere out of the socket from a nuclear station, you have no relation to it. You have a relation with your solar panels like you have when you plant your own potatoes or tomatoes in your garden. When it comes to the table, it's so much better. There's love in these potatoes or tomatoes in the salad. It's much better than from the supermarket. And the same is with energy. Our kids, they come down into the boat, they look on the amp meter, we have enough energy, we can maybe watch a film or read a longer good night story, you know. There's a relation in it, yeah. So Salina, our first child, was then born in Patagonia. And what was a blessing is that we used our Swiss Army knife. And when we needed a passport, the Swiss ambassador heard that story that we used the Swiss Army knife, and he was thinking, and then he invited us, and he was friends with this company, Victorinox. They produce these knives. They are used a lot in Norway as well by fishermen. And they sponsored then us new sales. And like that, we could continue. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think Noah likes to shortly show you how we sail now with the children. Okay.
So when we are sailing,
Okay.
So when we're sailing, we are always attached to the boat. But what I think is the hardest is when we are having school on the boat. So it's always the pencil or the gum or the viskeler, which is rolling down the table, and then you always have to go and get it again, come up, start again, and it takes very long time. But it still works, so.
Yeah, so when it's stormy, what we did in the first years is that we hang up our children inside the boat. So we named it Playing Helicopters, because that's fun for the children. You know that they don't hurt, and what's very important for us is that they don't silly thing like playing with the radio, or Noe was in Stavanger playing with the fire extinguisher, made a big mess inside the boat. So that's a good option to do, so when it's stormy. In Australia, we stayed about 2 years in Australia because it's such a big country. And we were addicted also to cycle to schools in the outback. And then we were participating as the first Swiss boat in the Sydney Hobart race in 2008, just 10 years after the big disaster. Then we sailed to India. That's after a hurricane near Calcutta, a farmer showing his farmland. And that we really realized as sailors, not since when we started to now, big storms, you know, violent weather is more often. What is much better is the information you have. So now we have so many tools, you know, to check the weather. So that's much better. Then we were cycling to Nepal, to Kathmandu, and there we started hiking, and we were cleaning up 3 mountains surrounding Everest, and also on Everest. And Noe was then with 4 or 5 months with Sabine in the base camp. And Sabine did then the weather and organized some cleanups with some local schools where the older children went to school in the Khumbu Valley when we were busy on Everest, cleaning Everest. So this is on Lhotse, North Face, where a commercial expedition left after a storm. And I think that's just unfair, you know. Other people, they like also to enjoy these beautiful mountains. And I hope when you or your kids climb there, that they really take their trash back home. We were financing our cleanup expeditions also to bring dead bodies down from the summit area of Everest. So this person, our body, was lying there 2 years, 90 kilos, and we hoped that through the dry air it become lighter. But he was frozen so fast that he was still 90 kilos, and we had to, and there you cannot go by helicopter, so we had to upside him all the way down, Lhotse North Face. And in this altitude, it's quite an effort, yeah. So we, after Everest, we cycled then through whole China and to the Expo 2010 in Shanghai, where we did some talks, and continued then to Africa. So we cycled them back to the boat and continued to Africa. And now, maybe next time I'm coming, I talk about Africa. That's our favorite continent, but time is running. So let's go now once around the globe and come back to the Galapagos. So we were back in the Galapagos after the first time around the globe after 9 years. So at the moment, we are on about 150,000 nautical miles, so that you have a little bit an idea. But we anchored at the same spot, and the seal went around like wild around our boat, so you can always come back to your friends. And we met 9 years later, Hans again. Yeah, so that was probably the best of the whole expedition. Yeah, was just unbelievable. Yeah, and the first time we didn't have kids, huh? We could only tell about Hans, you know. Yeah. So maybe just something we were also discussing, we can do once a Zoom meeting or so when people really like to go sailing for years. Or maybe you come up once to Lyngen. Maybe we can do it at Lyngen Lodge once, a seminar to share your experience. Maybe just one thing here. You see here these aluminum bowls. That's actually our lemons and oranges, our vitamin C source. And when you wrap them in aluminum foil, you can keep them 6 months fresh. You know, you have to understand, we didn't have had a fridge for 7 years. Or a cabbage, when you wrap that in a newspaper, upside down, you cut a little bit, you need only 1 drop every 3 days. And the cabbage thinks I'm still living. You need cabbage for 6 months. Huh? So we sailed then from the Galapagos to Hawaii and then to Alaska. And we overwintered there in a very small fishing town. The ferry needs 18 hours to the next road. It's Cordova. And there we had to hunt and fish that we had with the natives, that we have enough food and insulate the boat better. And then the next spring that we learned from Antarctica, we became the first coming from the ocean to climb Denali. So the first climbers, they came from Fairbanks through the tundra, and they know also why, because we used here in the forest once, we had done only 1 mile in 24 hours because the forest was so dense, so it was totally stupid actually. And then as soon as we have been on the glacier, it was like a highway. And we did also a big cleanup here. And afterwards, the rivers we used to ski in were open. So we had pack rafts with us. And that's really something also very important when you go to Svalbard. I think a pack raft is only about 2 kilos, and you can load 150 kilos on a pack raft. And when you go on shore in Svalbard, you know, and the polar bear destroys your dinghy, you still have this small pack that you can make it back to your boat. Yeah. So after the Alaskan range, we sailed then down and studied humpback whales to San Francisco, where we needed new sails. And meanwhile, we cycled for 6 months and went also the deepest point in the continent. So our idea was to go from the highest to the deepest without using a motor. And when we cycle, the kids have also, like on the boat, their jobs to do. So Allegra and Noe, they have to look for a good place for our second home, and that's our tent. What was really interesting in the Bible Belt of the US, it was the first time after about 100 countries where the principal told us, you're very welcome, but please don't use the term climate change and don't say something about evolution. So that's our Christmas party in our summer house, or how you like to name it, when we are cycling. And then we were back on the boat, mending the sails to go through the Northwest Passage, where Admundsen was first. We were provisioning for 8 months. And then that evening, after we had provisioned everything, we had some friends with us, and we played soccer, and I ruptured the Achilles. And I had to, my insurance told me I have to come home to Switzerland to operate it. It's too expensive in the US. And they didn't took off my bandage, so that was this expedition in a figure 8 to go around the 2 Americas. And I didn't have had blood in my leg for 24 hours. And I had to be in the University of Hospital for 3.5 months, 5 operations. After 2 weeks, the insurance told me, we don't pay. We hear that you have been more than 6 years outside of Switzerland. Even I paid every year about 10,000 euros for the family. So it was really a disaster. And after 3 weeks, they like to amputate my leg. So you can remember, and my wife was pregnant. So it was hardship. But as soon as I was in a wheelchair, I had to learn to walk again when I came out of the university hospital, because I was always lying. And as soon as I could stand, I told my wife, we have to go back to the boat, otherwise I get crazy. And we went back and we sailed the Northwest Passage. And we were late in a way that in this year, 2016, the ice was pressing against Cape Barrow, the most northerly point in Alaska. So we couldn't come through here till beginning of August, about 10th of August, and still had the whole passage to go. So we were in September in this area here, and already got pushed back in Lancaster Sound, where Amundsen came through by really violent autumn storms. And then I was thinking, maybe I sail back to where Amundsen overwintered, to Choya Haven, or I stay in Fort Ross. That's just a bay here. And then I saw that there's a little bit of an opening, maybe 1.5 mile. And to keep the mood on board alive, I thought, okay, let's just go down here to have a sail before we prepare for the winter. And it was a little bit open. And I had the feeling, we can do it. And it was maybe a little bit crazy, and it was quite difficult, but we managed. And we heard then, when we came down to Newfoundland, that it has been never done to the Northwest Passage into Hudson Bay. So we became the first sailboat sailing the Northwest Passage into Hudson Bay. And that was a huge success then also in New York. So this is our icebreaker. It just... because the problem you have, is also when you go to Svalbard and so on, that the ice is always giving scratches on the same spot. And when you have just built something like that, it's very easy to put on. Then you avoid that. We were also doing microplastic analysis in the Northwest Passage. And the kids are responsible to push the ice away. And then when we came down, then they like to swim. We was quite hard for the polar bears. So this polar bear here, this was about 70 nautical miles out offshore without ice. And he was already so weak, he couldn't climb our dinghy that we could bring him in. These polar bears here in this bay, there were 11, and they specialized in beluga whales. They go there for a massage, and at low tide, they cannot escape the bay, and then it's easy prey. But normal food for them would be seals. The Inuits are also struggling because they lose their hunting grounds when the ice is, when it's freezing so late and breakup is so early. And my kids got crazy when my Inuit friend, killed this dolphin. But he said, I have 4 kids to feed, and I hate to kill the dolphin, but I have to because I cannot find seals anymore. Now in New York, we wrote a letter to Mr. Obama and Mr. Trump, invite them on natural ground to have coffee, that we can explain what's going on in the north. We got a letter from Obama, but we didn't hear back. I think Trump was twittering too much, busy. But we became the members of the Explorers Club because we opened this new passage in the Northwest Passage. Then we went back to Iceland and Greenland, and there we started a campaign where we still are quite busy with in the summer to introduce outdoor sports to Inuits, young people, because they have the problem to stay in their settlements like Hulusuk, Itakotoromit, and so on at the East Coast. And there are already tourists going there with foreign guides, and they're standing there like in the museum and get photographed. And what we try really to do is to show them how to climb. We do normally a football game, then we have all the kids, and then we show them the skills of belaying and climbing, and they have that in their nature. As hunters, they need adrenaline and endorphin, and they're so good climbers, kayakers. And my goal is now also to bring some sailing boats, so some optimists or lasers to them. Then we had Vital, you have seen in Iceland, in Akureyri. And after the birth, we have had a storm they told us they have never had before in the harbor. And we had really big ropes. The cleats were just ripped out of the hull. And we were drifting against the floating pier that went up and down like a snake. And we damaged the whole site. And we ended up 9 months fixing the boat. We were going from friends to friends. We changed houses about 10 times. But it was incredible, the help and the hospitality of the people of Iceland in Akureyri. What was not fun was insurance. Finally, they let us do the work and told us that we get paid a little bit. We never saw the money. So now I have big fenders, you know. I quit all the insurances. I have just the minimum, and I bought bigger fenders. I think that's much more healthy. That's my advice. Then we came to Norway, and here it was really paradise for us. We like to surf and to ski, so that's in Lofoten, where you can surf and ski the same day. And then now, where we are now, where also Graham lives, there's a lot of humpback whales, and we went then to Svalbard, and we made it then to 82 degrees north and came then all around Nordøstlandet and down to Kirkenes. And the Sysselman told us that we were the first sailing boat sailing, because we had to sail all around Svalbard. And it was also, that's Nordøstlandet in the background you see here. And 82 degrees, that's quite far away. So it shows that the melting is going. And what was interesting for us is that we have seen the biggest amount of garbage when we were looking all the coast of Norway. It was in Svalbard at the edge of the pack ice. And we organized then also a lot of cleanups. And that's a little bit our idea. So when some people are sailing north, or we are discussing that we may come down to this Viking meeting, and it would be great to do kind of an armada, some boats together, to do some activities and cleanups next year. So that's the way the research part we do. So that's eDNA. We look what kind of animals are in the water, where we throw this manta net. That's for the microplastic. And also again, at the edge of the pack ice, we have seen the most microplastic. So what's happening is with the Gulf Stream, all the plastic is washed up north, and the pack ice is more or less a barrier where it gets stuck. Then we were very pleased in Svolvær. There's Skarvik, that's a 40-meter hole, and they were lifting us out here to finish our repairs after the storm in Iceland. So that's the hospitality we got in Norway. And you see here the trek from this year. That's the red line. So the green line was last year. So this year we went to 80 degrees north in Svalbard in June. And then we came back to Lyngseidet. And then we went to Berenberg and climbed Berenberg. Then we went further to do these projects with the Inuit children in East Greenland. And then we were sampling in northern Iceland. And then we were 4 years later back at the place where we had that big accident, where our boat was dying. And that was very emotional because we could still see the scars in the concrete, you know, of that night. And our friends told us, tomorrow is the National Sailing Championship. You kids should participate. And we still had the social number in Iceland. And so Allegra became first in Optimist B class and Noe third in A class. And that's on Berenberg. So that was quite a walk because we met Seliot Nessie there. And we had to walk from the Hvalárosbukta in the southern part of the island all the way to Berenberg. Because of COVID, they couldn't give us a lift, the army. And it was quite long. So I think we measured with the GPS, the walking distance was 78 kilometers. And we had to climb over the ridge first to the other side, and then up the mountains, down the mountain, over the ridge again. So we total we got 3,000 altimeters. So we needed 26 hours, and yeah, that was maybe you can shortly tell. Maybe Allegra likes to. I forgot that she liked to tell that.
Yeah, so.
Kanskje på nordisk.
Ja. Vi gikk til Jan Mayen, og jeg og pappa ville gå på Berenberg, men det var litt langt. En vei var til 39 kilometer og 3000 høydemeter. Men det var skikkelig varmt på toppen. Man liksom, jeg måtte bare ha en t-shirt på, og det var litt sjokkert på. Og når vi kommer tilbake, da gjorde vi en clean-up, og da fant vi også ganske masse plastikk. Det var litt rart at det var så masse plastikk der, fordi det måtte jo komme fra ganske langt vei. Norge eller noen plass andre land måtte jo komme opp, eller ja. Ja, det var litt, ja. Men det var fint på toppen til å se hele Jan Mayen, ja.
So now I come to the end. I really like to thank also Graham. He lives just over the fjord of us. We are now have our boat here in Sørheim Bridge in Lyngseidet, and he came also to help me to do this sailing event we have had about 2 weeks ago, I guess. And we had a lot of young sailors and really children that never sailed before. And it was a lot of fun. And I hope that you make it also once up there and join us once sailing up north. But maybe Noe likes to tell you about his plans of his World Championship.
So in the winter last year, I had the idea to drown the sail club because there is very good conditions to sail, and there's nearly always wind, and there's not too much waves for Optimist. Yeah, so we are trying to organize a world championship for
Topper.
For a topper, which you see in the background.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's maybe also something I talked to Emily. I think she's the racing trainer, and we have some kids that really like to race from the north, but our problem is distance. And so when will be from a big club like you some support, or that we can be part of your club or whatever, to support this really young, sometimes also Sami kids, you know, to have once a race in Oslo. I think that would be such a great experience for them that maybe change their life, you know, and really that they become sailors as forever. Yeah. So I think that would be something really I like to get into to maybe pass to the board, that maybe there's some kind of possibilities to support these sailors, young sailors up north, to maybe also once or enabling them or empowering them to come down once to do a proper race in Oslo. Yeah, so now we will then go back. When you have time, just come and see us. And Graham, it's time now soon where the herring comes in and where we have the handbags. Last year we photographed a handbag with a plastic bag on his fin near Sherwoy. And that's really spectacular to see. I think the ocean, that's really, for me, where life started. And I think we really have to protect our oceans. The light now, we lose about 1 hour now up there every week. But the light is really beautiful, and we have had already some wonderful northern lights. So you're more than welcome to come up to us and have a sail there. It's also beautiful, yeah. Then the skiing season is soon there also, so that's also something we appreciate, where we sail and ski. And that's another sport. I think it's really good for children. They are outside, they feel the wind. And when you have small ones, you just need some bigger ones, and then it's no problem to do it. So Vital can ski down, but and I think just for me, you know, as a mountain guide, to do this now with my kids, that's really the essence of life. You know, when I can share these moments with my children or with my friends, or maybe hopefully with you once, that's priceless. You know, you cannot steal it. You know, stuff you can steal, and that's something we learned on the boat. On a boat, you have always to reduce your stuff, because a heavy boat does not sail good. Huh? The sailing performance is shit. So our kids, they have 1 box of toys, and when they get something new, they have to give something away. With shoes, we have 5 pairs of shoes, you know, and we cannot have more each. That's already 5 times 8, 40, huh? On a boat. Because we need skiing boots, we need climbing boots, then Crocs, running shoes. Huh? So it's getting a lot. But I think this lifestyle, we named it Living Light, is really not only good for your soul. When you climb a mountain, you have a heavy backpack. You never make it to the top. And living light, you know, when you have a light boat, it's fun. And it's not only good for you, because I remember in the US, I met a family, friends of us, they had 5 cars. When you called them up, are you coming surfing? The waves are great. You know, I have to work. It's really, I have to pay insurance, you know. They have to pay insurance for 5 cars. They have to go to oil changes, you know, for 5 cars. But they didn't have that time, but they can only drive 1 car, you know. So that's what I think is living light. So less is really more. That's what we experienced. Use your time to share with your children, with your friends outdoors. That has of value, that you take, that never can take of you afterwards, you know, stuff that can be stolen. And finally, I think this lifestyle helps also our planet, because when everybody needs 5 cars, this planet does not survive. But when more people realize that just being outdoors and connect with nature, you know, and share these experiences and become friends with nature, then our planet will survive. And so I think you do the right thing. You're sailors, and keep sailing. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay.
Wow, wow, wow. I just have to say this was so inspiring and way beyond. In Norway, we have this expression called å hoppe etter Wirkola. And I think we got one right now to find someone to give us similar or better than what we just got now. It's going to be a tough job. So if anyone has any suggestions, you're very welcome. But this is the most impressive expedition I have ever heard about. And obviously, to do this is not cheap. And that's why I have to ask you all to bring out your wallets and cash in, Chris. Yes, but I'm not joking. Top to Top is an expedition led by Dario, and they also have a website. And you can log into this website and look there. There's a special little sign that says donate. So you can help this expedition go on further by donating a little bit as a thank you for this interview. And I would really appreciate if you all did that. Are we allowed to ask any questions? Yeah? Ah, we would love to. I'm sure someone is quite eager.
The green is proposed.
Yeah, so the red is what we have done,
Yeah.
and the green is what we like to do. So you cannot sail around Greenland, but I think we can sail quite close, and then maybe like in Antarctica with kites to go further. Yeah.
But what worries you most about that whole?
What do you mean? How many mileage?
What worries you? What are the risks? What's going to be most difficult?
Yeah, regarding risk, what I learned is it's always risky when you're time pressed. And I think that's the advantage we have with our sponsor, Victorians. They never give us time limits. And I think that's so important. But because when I started sailing, Sabine told you that I told her we can make this world record in 4 years, and then we are back in Switzerland and starting a family. Now we are already 21 years on the way. And the reason was for sure that we met a lot of school children, but we realized in a very early stage of the expedition that you have to go when nature invites you, and you have to take over the rhythm of nature. That means when we are in the South Pacific and we have hurricane season, then we just go more into schools and wait till the conditions are good again. And the same on the mountains. When it's avalanche danger, we don't go. We just wait till nature invites us. And I think that's something, time, you just need time. And then I think you can make it very secure. Yeah. So the risk for me, and we got this a lot from journalists, they ask, you're totally crazy. You sail with newborn over oceans. And you have to understand the longest we didn't have seen a supermarket was once 8 months. So we like to go to remote places. So, and I told him, look, on the ocean, I feel much, much more comfortable than when I'm in a big city like Sydney cycling. When I'm cycle and a driver comes along who is drunk, I can be the best cycling, so I have no chance. On the ocean, I see some storm clouds coming, then I can prepare, and I have to deal with nature, and nature plays always fair, you know. And the same I see also with my children. They already realize, you know, when the birds are flying differently and something is not okay, when we have to prepare. When Sabine and I go to sleep, we'll actually look how our children sleep, because they have this frog thing, you know, and depending how they're orientated, that's the best position. So also on the boat, I think the boat for us is more than a house. It became kind of like a living thing, you know, where you move also, and where we sleep and cook, but most of the time we are outside. So for us, we don't feel that we are in a prison on 20 square meters. So our walls are actually the horizon, and our roof is the sky, you know. So this freedom, I think, I think that's really priceless. Yeah, and the risk we take, you know, people also when we climb Bärenberg now with the kids, and one Salina fell into a crevasse, but you know, Noe was trained to hold her, and I have done nothing, and he took her out of the crevasse, you know. So you have to be prepared, and you have to train, and we do a lot of drills on the boat. But you know, my kids are not exposed to the pollution of Zurich or New York City, you know. They probably don't get cancer. They eat fresh cod, the freshest cod you can get on the planet from northern Norway. So I think risk is, you can, yeah. Okay, and something others also with TV. I think my idea is really everybody should throw their TV overboard, you know, or we don't have a TV, and we have now one tablet to navigate. But you know, my friends back in Switzerland, they get more and more depressed watching the news with all the disasters, the Afghanistan and so on, you know. And we became every year more optimistic about the future of this planet, because on this expedition, we are exploring the positive, from the top examples to the next top examples. And with this privilege, we really, first of all, our planet is still so wonderful. There's so many good people. There's so many good initiatives and technology and so on. So we became actually every year more positive about the future. Yeah, and that we like to cross, especially to young people. And I think that's really a time now we have to do it. Our kids are so exposed to the negative all the time that we have met kids, you know, kids. They told us, why we should care. The planet goes down anyway. And I think that's dramatic. Huh? Is there another question? I do it shorter now. Yeah.
How long are you going to stay in Norway?
Okay. Yeah, we don't know. You know, I got also often the question, how many more years you sail, you know? And maybe I'm not, what is your job?
What is my job?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a sailor.
Yeah, okay. But let's say you're a nurse. I would never ask you when you stop nursing, being a nurse. You know what I mean? But we get this question all the time. What do you do next? But we learned, I mean, for us it was important, and I think that's really something healthy when you sail around the world, that you have a project, that you have some milestones where to go. And for us, it was the highest mountain on each continent. I think that's good. Then you know what's next, you know. Otherwise, you would be lost on the planet. I think that's good. But after 20 years, I think sometimes it's really important that you are not on a plan. I remember when I did this very Swiss. I did this expedition. I got invited by this guy who gave me this loan to do a master plan about the expedition. So I knew exactly every day where I sailed to, on which mountain I climbed, which leg. So something like 2004, the 10th of December, we will sail from Cape Town, off to Sant'Alina and so on, by day. I did that. Luckily, we never have done it, because when you do that, when you go by plan, then nothing can happen. And I think it's good when you have destinations, but no timing. Then things can happen. And the same was with Norway. Our plan was to come from Iceland then and Greenland only for 3 days to Norway to meet a friend of us who was at our wedding. She's from Lofoten. Just to see her, because we were so close, and then go to Senegal. That was our destination. And now, that was 2019, yeah. So our plan now is actually that we stay in the Lyngen area as a base for the next 5 years because of the research we do for these different universities, where we try to bring Norwegian universities together with Icelandic, Swiss and Austrian universities, because I think that's really important that they, at the moment, it's a disaster. They fight each other about funding, and I think we have, also in science, we have to come together to solve problems, yeah. So that's why we stay for the next 5 years. And for me as a mountain guide, it's the best. It's great skiing in winter, where I can work, and the sailing is fantastic up there. Yeah.
I used to sail the topper, so it's amazing
yeah?
to see the pictures of this day.
Yeah.
Back when I was 16 in Nestle beside Forening.
Did you sail it here in Oslo? Okay.
Huge class back in the 80s,
Yeah.
and not so much in Norway, but England is where it comes from, and so we went to the European Championship over there. And,
Yeah.
and I mean, I would come and sail this right away if you.
Yeah, because very short the story about the toppers. We sailed from Iceland to the Netherlands, and cycled to Switzerland to see once our family. Okay, and then we cycled back to the Netherlands, and there I asked the harbor master, where can I get a map of Norway, because I like also to have charts in paper. And he said, I think in the regatta center. So I went there, and there was lots of kids, and there were 80 sailors from China, and they had, I think, 90 toppers, this delegation from China. So it was the Topper World Championships. And just as a fun, I went to the race committee and asked if my kids can sail too. They never sailed on a topper. And Switzerland, we don't have Switzerland. That would be fantastic, another nation. So Noe was then the youngest in the Topper Championships in 2019. And now when he opened, he started looking for boats. Topper International sponsored him 2 boats. But he had to take them from London. And so because we knew some captains at the coast here, they go sometimes to London, so Northern Container Lines, they brought it up to Finnsnes, yeah. So that's why we have these toppers, yeah. But just come and sail, huh? Yeah.
I just want to share why I sail the topper is because I've always been too light to do the heavy winds.
Yeah.
So the laser, I would just, couldn't keep it up with the guys or the Europe dinghy. The topper, I could finally find, that I could compete with the guys.
Yeah, and what is really good on the topper is Allegra, the 10-year-old, can sail it because there's a sail 4.2 square meter. And then for us, we have sail, there's 5.2, there's even a radial sail where it's then really, so you don't have to change the hull. So from kid to grandma or grandpa, everybody can sail it, and you just change the sail, the rigging, yeah. Okay.
How did you recognize Hans? How did you know that Hans was the right Hans?
Just by behavior. Yeah. So it was, because it was going around the boat like wild. And when we went to shore, Hans joined us to shore. So that was And we became also much older, 9 years older. So I don't know how he recognized us, but probably the boat. Yeah, the boat was still the same. Yeah. Yeah.
Ja, var det alle spørsmålene?
I'd just like to say something here. So we know our family here, we know Dario and his family on a personal capacity. We live in the same area. And tonight was another great inspiration to hear your journey as a family, which is really quite incredible. But Dario's greatest ability is to unite the communities and children together, to give them the opportunities to see and feel sailing. And it's really quite incredible the impact you have had in our area up in northern Norway. And I'd just like to say thank you. There's a lot of people like to say thank you to you because you are a real ambassador for humanity. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I have to say the same to Graham, and I think we have. I think it's really fun, when you have people like Graham in the area. How you just call them up and they show up the next day and help out. And I have a feeling that we really can make it, that once in the Arctic we have the international topper World Championships. When I called them up and told them it's too cold, they didn't realize the temperatures. It's actually quite warm thanks to the Gulf Stream. So it will be fantastic when we have maybe also some supports, from you guys down here to make things happen also in the north.
My stairs at home.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah. Tusen takk. Ja.
Ja, da ønsker jeg på vegne av Kongelige Seilforening å takke. Thank you ever so much, Dario and family, top to top, for coming here and hold this fantastic presentation. It has been really, really something. I will never
Maybe
forget
I have
it.
to say something.
Yes.
You mentioned now always Dario, but I think the hero for me is Sabine.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Sabine, she was on this expedition and is the mother of 6 children. She was carrying Noe with 4 or 5 months from sea level all the way up, to Everest Base Camp, breastfeeding. We men can never do that, That means men are standing on top, we are the machos and we get the glory. But I think it's really the woman, and I think So I think the women, they deserve the glory.
Absolutely. Big cheers to Sabine. And as always, I have a bottle of red wine for you. But I left it in my car, so you're going to have to get it once you go back. So there's no way I'm going to leave this presentation for getting that up here now. So thank you ever so much. Very good.